Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Caleb, and this um, channel or website may be called a bunch of different things because I can't really make up my mind. But it'll probably be something along the lines of Starseed or Ascension, as most of what I share will be of an esoteric and spiritual awakening manner. So a couple things. The number one thing that everything I do is about is sharing my story. Um, there's lots of meta things that I do, which meta is a Greek word for beyond. But the main thing that I'm talking about is kind of like um, self-aware or like about self, meaning like if meta promotion is promoting promotion. So my journey and story is very meta because I'll like write a story about how I'm writing my story. Um, so the way I do that is very abstract. I do it through three main levels right now. There's my blog, which has many different layers within itself. There's vocal recordings, which obviously there's no video, and then there's videos, and that's what I want to really get into, because it's ultimately the most authentic form, I think, of expression. However, I also believe that the other forms, especially interwoven with each other, are important, and are fine and great to have. My story specifically is mainly about my ascension journey. So my blog, my website right now is mainly kind of like me sharing myself and then going back in at different time frames and with like different fonts, so you know like where I'm coming from, or rather when I'm coming from. And I'll come in from a separate date, maybe like a month after I post an original post, the different font, different timeline, and I then talk about what I talked about there. And a lot of it is self um, analyzing in the moment, because what I usually do is I'll look at what I have expressed and I'll see what I'm hiding, or rather the patterns that ultimately aren't serving myself and everyone else, and then I will take that and transmute it, whether it's through meditation, or I'll notice maybe where it's stemming from is something that could be fixed through doing more exercise or yoga or whatever it is. So I recently had lots of resistance to or towards just doing that as my core, even though that's like everything I've done in the past like 2 to 3 years. I've created 9 blogs and I've gotten rid of it over and over and over and over and over again because I'm a perfectionist, and it was never good enough, and I always wanted to do something next level, even though the whole time the part of the whole story was so that you can have evidence and a trail of my journey, so that you can see everything I've done and where I've come from to now where I am. So if I finally allowed myself to just let it go, and everything is out there for you to dive into. And so if you want to know who I am, it's all there for you. And you can see the journey that I took to get to where I am now. I think the oldest post that I have is like sometime back in January or March of 2019. It's called Spider Stone, the post is, and I think I've gone to that one like 2 or 3 times, and at the bottom of it, it takes you out into more of my expressions, which is I'm coming to terms with like what I'm labeling all these things, but it's kind of like a channel, and it's a journey of which you can kind of see where my consciousness was actually going from and into, and then you like appear at a different pose that talks about other things, but it would be linked to the first thing that I talked about in the first place. And so I give many different tunnels and routes for you to kind of explore myself. And it's always evolving, it's always changing, because ultimately it's a reflection of who I am, and it's loaded. Is the whole point is that it's to generate synchronicity for myself and others. and I'm kind of honing in on how I'm going to express synchronicity because it's kind of like sporadic. Um, but part of sharing my journey that's very important and I think different and key and essential is that it's so authentic and in real time, and it does not always have to be like in these flow states, right? And it's like day to day. So it's right now I'm going to be doing it every single day because ultimately I'm going to get into the next point is that I'm going to encourage you to share your story too. And so I want to, walk the walk, whatever. Um, so I would really kind of have this as my core, and I already have one, but I want it to be current, right? I want it to move with me, and I want to kind of embody what I'm really saying. Um, and so the main theme of the sharing of the journey is it doesn't have to be esoteric for anyone. It's great for anyone to share their story at all because it helps other people kind of be comfortable with sharing their own, and it helps them relate. But the other thing is that it allows, and especially for the more esoteric people, and even more so, especially for the people who have followings or everyone is so unique, and the work that you may be here to do, especially if you're a light worker or a starseed or a seeker or whatever you want to call yourself. You may have something that you really love to do, and maybe that's your gift, and maybe that's why you're here to. That's what you're supposed to share. Ultimately, you're here to just be. You're here to kind of. That's it. And so, in sharing your story, no matter what else you do, um, you're then doing your work. You're being, but then you're also kind of being more, so to speak, right? You're allowing yourself to be seen. And I've had all these gifts and things that I'm like, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. Like this piano right here. You probably can't see the piano, but I have a piano here, and I'm really good at music, but I kept like going after it and then just realizing that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. But maybe it is, but only a part of what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I've got all of these, gifts and top things that I have done in the past, and I couldn't settle on any of it. So what I always come back to is sharing your story because it's sharing who you are. And so I hope through sharing my story, I can encompass everything else. Because I just have so much to talk about, and again, I'm allowing myself to really just mainly talk about that, right? Talk about me and allow that to then unfold, which I think is another great thing for people who are maybe stuck with what they want to do. If you just express who you are, you'll see what you mainly maybe like to talk about more, maybe what people really resonate with you more on, and so it's a way for you to kind of zero in on not who you are, but even so, but maybe what to do or all this stuff, and it doesn't never have to be set in stone, right? Um, so yeah, that's the core. That's the core of my work, um, and the other part is to encourage you again to share your own story, and hopefully as authentically as you can, and not just like here's my one video and another video that explains everything I'm about. That's great, and I think I'll even have that for myself. But ultimately, the the aspect of having a summary of how you got to where you are is fine, but I think it's so important, especially now in the collective, to continuously share where you are, not only for yourself but for everybody else. Um, I talk about the humanness aspect that you're revealing when you do this, because people want to you. People want to see you. They actually do. The universe wants to bear witness to who you are. Um, and again, like the people who have followings, right? The there's such a strong tendency for people to just like place people on a pedestal and think that they're like perfect or whatnot. Um, when they may be doing certain things that everyone else wish they were doing, or ultimately see themselves doing in the future, um, in sharing your day-to-day stuff, like what you had for a snack, or how you feel, especially if it's not like in a flow state, like maybe you're not having a good day, share that, and then share the personal, like your thoughts behind it, because that's real connection, and it helps, again, especially within like a spiritual community, people to really connect, because ultimately, especially the more esoteric you get, the more, generally speaking, alone a person may feel because of how isolated they come from. And that's where I've come from. I've just kind of, and mine's mixed. I have a very interesting pattern of my isolation and kind of like my solitude. Um, but a lot of it comes from me just really not wanting to be with the masses, or like all these other groups, because it doesn't feel real to me, right? It's not fulfilling, and it's just kind of like, here I am. I can resonate. By resonate, I mean I can get along with and joke around with basically any group, and I've proven that throughout my life. But what do I really long for? It's a soul connection, and this will help people do that, and it will also, again, help people to um, not only feel connected, but to then share their own story. And so I sort of see, I like to do things massive. I need to work on just taking the next step. And actually, this, for me, is just taking the next step, because I wasn't in flow state, and I hit so many resistances today and this weekend, and it feels like a waste, but it's definitely not. And so I just needed to record myself in this manner, even though, I have to have the window down because it gets so hot in here, because I have a furnace here, and it's unbearable that I can't have that shot. I mean, it could, but it would just be so uncomfortable. So, I'm dealing with all these things that may not be perfect. So in just taking that next step, everything kind of unfolds. And so in taking the next step to share my story, I hope to also help encourage others to share their story, so that more people can share their story. So it's like a whole explosion of exponential golden growth. So that's my core. But then, because I'm a perfectionist, it took me so long to just accept that within myself. And I say that because there's so many things I want to talk about, which I can do by just sharing my story. I'm going to go through my life and just talk about whatever. Maybe I'll take recordings of, I'll have a separate version of just me kind of expressing open-endedly my story, and then take chunks of what I talk about, because I will zero in, again, on different topics within those videos, and then just cut that as a quality video, maybe when I get into flow state during these types of stuff, video recordings, and kind of have that be as a side project. But I do intend on having certain other sectors of everything Ascension based. I've done the research, and I'm aware enough, and I've proven to myself over and over and over again how qualified I am to kind of share this stuff, and people really resonate with me. And diving deeper into that, there's so many fields of ascension and spirituality and awakening that people get hooked onto, and they see as the one answer, or have a certain perspective and not allow other perspectives, or not even be aware of other perspectives. And I hope to bring that to the field of ascension as well, because there's just so much to kind of, especially if you're just getting into the spiritual journey. Where do you start? Well, you start with where you feel pulled to start, and then I hope to then have explanations, or my perspective. Again, I say this is just my perspective. This is not the truth. Your truth and my truth is not the truth, but there are ways to filter what you're searching through, and no matter who you find or what you're looking into, you can find things that resonate with you at a level that helps you have that answer that you already had, first of all, but to kind of unlock that which you sought, right? And I have come to a point where I'm pretty good at that, so I want to share my different perspectives on all of these other fields, so that maybe you don't get hung up on, I don't know, what's a popular topic? Twin flames, right? There's, my beliefs on twin flames are very, maybe not so much anymore, but it's not the general take on twin flames, and it's multi-layered of like what a twin flame is, and drawing that into your life or manifesting it, right? Um, so I'm not going to get into that specifically now, but I will later. And I think just sharing my story, I think that'll like really just help me unfold, because this whole process is me figuring myself out, and through figuring myself out, I'm also figuring out my public persona or public teaching or whatever it is. I'll probably have like a little like school of all these things that I believe for myself, and then I will go in and I will then talk about later on how I don't believe certain things anymore, and how to like I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but basically I try to be as unbiased as possible, and I try to share my perspective on my perspective as much as possible as well. And I'm sure I'll be doing other things like playing piano, because that's part of my journey to do that. So maybe I'll just talk about stuff, and then eventually I think I'll maybe sing. I'm a little bit too uncomfortable with that right now, but like music is a big part of my life, and so I think sharing that is important. Outside of that, the whole journey that I have is to help wake you up, to help basically, I used to think like I was like Neo, right? I was the one, but it's so far off from truth. I'm here to help, enlighten the planet, but it's not, and I need to step into kind of accepting that I am able to contribute, right? So coming to a balance and actually share myself and get myself out there has been interesting for me. And I also think I'll be doing, readings. I'm really good at prediction. My clairvoyance is like pretty high right now. Meditations, guided meditations. I've done like retreats where we were taught how to like help people or like guide people through a like very deep process, and the range of the people that I helped were very like wide, and they all were kind of like a maze. And that was surprising to me, because I've had all these like self-worth issues, right, that are just slowly fading away, and so I'm really coming into being, and I just want to do so much. I think that is it. I usually ask myself if there's anything else I want to share, because usually sometimes there's like gold at the end that I may not necessarily plan to talk about, but that's part of what I talk about, is that like it doesn't have to be planned. You just do it, and then it's kind of like figured out for you. So is there anything? Oh, I recorded myself for like 40 minutes to do this, but my phone shut off because of a setting, which wasn't upsetting, but I have already hit all these like resistance points, and like I'm just trying to get this one video published, and there has been so many things going on that has stopped me from doing it. So one cool thing about my work that I came to really like in the past was an acronym for CAT, and I relate it to my Lyran past. I think I'm pretty Lyran, but it's consciousness awakening triggers, and I again do that mainly through synchronicity. So everything is loaded to a very high conscious intent to increase and generate synchronicity for again me, but also you. So I think it's just so fun, because I like the theme of bridging the gap between what you think reality is and what it actually is, and it's a very easy tool that I've used, and it works, and I have like full faith in it. Like I can create a synchronicity emblem, I call them, and people experience it, and they'll experience it at certain times, and I think that bridges the gap again into a process of what I like to call cognizing faith in magic, where you kind of like really start to believe maybe the beliefs that you don't know consciously, Or like you think you know them consciously, but really, you know, underlyingly, you're like, oh, that's not real, right? So I think synchronicity is a cool little tool um, to bridge that gap. So that's me, guys. I hope this video recorded, because swear to God.